Hello, and welcome to another edition of Interviewing the Legends, brought to you by the Publicity Works Agency, devoted to promoting musicians and authors worldwide. Call us today at 941-877-1552 to start your free publicity evaluation. Remember, we shine only when we make you shine. Please welcome the host of Interviewing the Legends, music journalist, author, and entrepreneur, Ray Shasho.
Hello once again, everyone. I'm your host, Ray Shasho, and welcome to another edition of Interviewing the Legends on BBS Radio TV, brought to you by the Rockstar Chronicles, Series 1, my new book featuring over 45 intimate conversations with the greatest music legends the world will ever know. It's available now at bookbaby.com and amazon.com. Americana Rock legend Walter Egan releases new album, Fascination, inspired by a shared history with legendary Super-Groupie Pamela Des Barres. Featuring the single, Miss Pamela. West Coast country and Americana rock music crossover legend Walter Egan has released his new album, Fascination, which features 13 West Coast rock / Americana influenced tracks, all inspired by Walter Egan's shared history with Pamela Des Barres. The first single from the album, Miss Pamela, was released in February. With a mostly undocumented, illustrious backstory in the music business, Walter Egan wrote Hearts on Fire for Graham Parsons and Emmylou Harris, and achieved chart success with his solo albums, Fundamental Role and Not Shy, which were both produced by his good friend Lindsay Buckingham, and with Stevie Nicks singing, particularly on his hit single Magnet and Steel. Walter had further hit singles with Full Moon Fire, Only the Lucky, and Hot Summer Nights, which Eminem sampled on his We Made You release. Given his impeccable musical pedigree, Walter naturally fell in with the LA County rock scene, playing with Don Henley, Glenn Frey, Linda Ronstadt, Chris Darrow, David Lindley, Joel Shear, and Jackson Browne. And within 2 years, through a hot night at the Troubadour, he secured a record deal from United Artists Records in England. This soon manifested into a 6-album deal with Columbia Records, US, and worldwide. Egan and his band have toured extensively, sharing the bill with many legendary bands, including AC/DC, Fleetwood Mac, Procol Harum, the Beach Boys, Foreigner, Heart Kansas, Dave Mason, Tom Petty, and the Heartbreakers. Walter has played and recorded with Sageworth, Jackson Browne, Randy California Spirit, Wanda Jackson, Chris Darrow, the Flying Burrito Brothers, and the Malibus. You can purchase Walter Egan's Fascination at amazon.com and also at www.music.apple.com. Please welcome American rock musician, singer, songwriter, best known for his 1978 gold status hit single Magnet and Steel, Walter Egan, to Interviewing the Legends. Hello, Walter.
Hello, Ray. It's a mouthful, but always great to hear about it again, just to remind me what I've done. But yeah, you've got a few of the legends there on your list as well. I'm glad you finally got around to me here. Appreciate that. Nice to be.
I've been interviewing guys that I've interviewed twice, 3 times, so it's always nice to get a new face.
Oh yeah, it's part of my mystique.
I always loved your music. I was a top 40 DJ back in 78, 79, when your hits came out.
Yeah, good. So, where was that?
In Annapolis, Maryland.
Ah, very good.
Yeah, the station is now owned by Pat Sajak. He bought the station.
Really? There you go. Vanna
you-
White come along or not?
You studied at Georgetown. I'm from DC originally, and I didn't know you studied at Georgetown. Very cool.
That F Street reference in one of your books there.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, I was at Georgetown from 66 to 70, and then I stayed around in that locale until about the end of 72, when I moved up to Boston with Sageworth. But yeah, DC was a happening place to be in those days. There was a great music scene, as well as, of course, the crazy politics that were going on. And we got to play a number of those demonstrations with Sageworth. And that it was a cool time to be there. It was. I happened to be a couple of years behind Bill Danoff over at Georgetown. And so, and of course, he's famous for Afternoon Delight and Take Me Home Country Roads. And so Bill did pretty well for himself with those two tunes. But yeah, it was a happy place to be. I lived on Wisconsin Avenue. That's where our band had a house right at Wisconsin and Q.
That's a great place. Great. Yeah, Wisconsin's famous.
I think it's a Thai restaurant now, as a matter of fact. But in those days, it was $140 a month rent. So, a 7-piece band, it was pretty cheap for us to live there. And but I think when we moved out, the little paper that they put out in Georgetown, I think it's called the Georgetowner. The headline was, "The blight has been lifted from Wisconsin Avenue." So our reputation went both ways there.
Great music scene, like you say. Yeah.
It really was. And I think in many ways it mirrored what was going on in the West Coast. We were kind of Jefferson Airplane, Buffalo Springfield kind of band. Our lead singer was a great singer lady named Annie McClune. Annie has done a record of her own on RCA, and she was on Magnet and Steel as well. And she toured with me later on, toured with Al Cooper. And she's living in Winona, Minnesota at the moment. But yeah, she's quite a legendary figure in those days, in those times. And, we try to get the band together for class reunions.
Right.
And, play all the oldies for them.
Where'd you go to high school?
I went to high school in New York City in a school called Loyola.
Right.
So it was, and Georgetown's a Jesuit school also. Yep. So it kind of, in those days, it was like, oh, well, just go to Georgetown. I said, oh, okay. No, basically, my high school band, which was called the Malibus, which you alluded to, everybody but our bass player went to Georgetown. So,
really?
Keeping the band intact by coming down there. Yeah, I grew up in Queens. I was in the same town as Joey Ramone. I think we lived on the same block for a long time.
Really?
Of course, I was there a few years before him. And there's a guy here in Nashville. I live in Franklin, Tennessee now. I've been here about 20 years. But there's a guy named Chris Gantry who wrote a song called The Dreams of an Everyday Housewife in like the early 60s for Glenn Campbell. And he and I signed to a publishing company a few years back and got to find out that we both lived on a very, specific section of Burns Street in Forest Hills. Not only that, but the girl who I admired from afar when I was in 7th and 8th grade lived like across the street from him. And she had this really, really good looking older sister. And Chris is like 5 years older than me. So he had gone out with her. It was just a crazy, circuit completed, many, many years after the fact. So, Loyola was a pretty good school. It was a very small school. So you got a chance to do a lot and, get to know your teachers pretty well.
Yep.
I played 4 years varsity baseball and basketball there.
Oh, wow. Varsity, huh?
Awesome. Yeah, captain of the varsity baseball team.
Really?
I thought for a while I had, some thoughts about trying to play professionally. But in those days, professional baseball players didn't really make that much money anyway. They had to have kind of off-season jobs. This was the late 60s or the
Sure.
middle 60s, actually. And so, yeah, and I also was the editor of the literary magazine. So I was kind of in both camps. And my coach used to always tell me to cut my hair, and he'd say, "Hey, Egan, are you on the team or are you in the band?" Sometimes I was both in the basketball games. I'd go down for the pep talk at halftime. Then I would run up to the gym in my uniform, join the band in the corner, put the guitar, put my Strat on, and they'd play, Let's Go, and the Knights are coming in. We're with the Knights instead of the Saints are coming in. Yeah, it was a fun time. It was a fun time to be there.
So you had the best of both worlds. I was going to try out for the high school baseball team. So I did a lot of boys club baseball. I did that for like
Sure.
6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
And my hair was quite long, very into rock and roll. All I wanted to do is go to concerts and party. So I said no. I said, no, I'm going to commit myself to rock and roll. So I didn't go that way. I kind of regret it a little bit now.
Well, I made that step when I moved off to college.
Yeah.
It was like the coach's, voice in my head going, are you going to do team? And I was thought, yeah, man, I'm going to do art.
Yeah.
I was an art major at Georgetown.
Cool.
Which is something fairly unusual, at least in those days, because that's
What position did you play in baseball?
I was a pitcher for the most part.
Really? Oh man.
And then when I actually at one time or another played every position but second base. But yeah, pitching was my forte. And then, to save myself, I would sometimes play first base in high school. And yeah, no, I had a pretty killer curveball and a great drop ball. Didn't need any of this spider tack stuff that they're talking about. I don't know if you're following baseball these days.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to relate what's going on today to what it really was.
Oh, it is.
It's like, come on, just do, just use your spit, or not even that. It's like use a little dirt. It was like everything has gone crazy now, and all of the what I can't even know what they are. It frustrates me to watch a baseball game now, and when they're launch velocity and all this. I mean, Jesus. Give me
you know what I hate? The pitch count. Leave the guy alone. If he's pitching good, leave him in there. Who cares about the pitch count?
I was inspired by Sandy Koufax, Don Drysdale, and and I grew up. First game I ever went to as a kid was a Dodgers-Yankees World Series game in 1956 at Ebbets Field.
Holy cow.
In fact, it was the game just before the one that happened in Yankee Stadium when Don Larson pitched the perfect game.
Perfect game.
And so, growing up in New York in those days, you had 3 teams, and you had the family split along team lines. And my grandmother was a big Dodger fan, and my parents were more Giants, and I was, I liked the Yankees. Baseball was a big part of our lives then.
Yeah.
It seemed like it was important stuff. And now it's just whiny millionaires. And I really loved the Ken Burns series, the baseball series. They just ran it again here.
Oh, did they? Huh.
Yeah. And so I enjoyed that kind of counterpart to trying to watch a game, and they're touting Clayton Kershaw as the next Koufax, and he just is not. He's a left-hander, okay, but no.
Yeah. 2 of my favorite pitchers are not in the Hall of Fame, which makes me very mad. Dave McNally and Mike Cuellar. I mean, this guy's 20-game winners every year, and the Orioles were the only.
Your Baltimore roots are showing.
4 20-game winners in 1 year. I mean, who has ever done that?
The Orioles were a juggernaut, man, under Earl Weaver in those days. Jim Palmer was out there, and
great team back then. Yeah,
they really were. Brooks Robinson,
Brooksy, Boog, Frank. Yeah.
Oh,
Did you ever go to a Senator game back in the RFK? Or
no, but I did go to the Ted Williams baseball camp when I was 14, and just going into high school. And Ted was there then. That was after he had been the manager of the Senators.
The Senators, yeah.
yeah, he was a real revelation for me
Mhm.
to listen. I made the all-star team, and we went to Boston and played a Jimmy Fun game. You know
Wow.
that he was the manager
Sure.
of the team, and I served as a relief pitcher in that game. But I got to sit next to him on the bench, and he was cursing a blue streak at the umps and at everybody. It was like words I had never heard
I
before. It was
know.
crazy. It was like,
Yeah.
wow, this is important stuff,
We
man.
have something in common. I spent 2 hours with Ted Williams. We had businesses in DC, and he walks in and he bought a couple of shortwave radios for me. But you're right. I mean, he's like John Wayne. He's like a real life John Wayne. And
Yeah.
he asked me, he says, "Son, when do you close your store?" Because it was his closing time. I says, "Mr. Williams, I close when you're done." He says, "Well, God damn it, you should be a goddamn politician, son." That's the way he talked, you know.
He did. It was great. Yeah, he was a real character.
Yeah,
You know, I was not much of a Red Sox fan ever, even though I lived up there for a while. And
yeah. Well, you're a Yankee fan, that's why.
yeah, well, yeah, and then a Dodger fan too. When I moved to the West Coast, I
Yeah.
kind of adopted them during those years. But nowadays, I don't know. It's just harder and harder to
Walter, you
follow.
know what you need to do? I did this. You need to do one of those fantasy camps. You got
Yeah,
to do it. I bet you're still in great shape too.
yeah. Well,
And
more
you
or
can
less.
pitch.
I think I can still pitch. You know,
Yeah.
that's what for years after I stopped playing. Every
You
spring,
got
it's
it. You
like,
got to
oh,
do it. Do it with the
yeah,
Yankees.
I can still do this. I can do, you know, comeback of the century.
I did it with the Orioles in 1990, and the year after, Joan Jett did it with the Orioles.
Oh wow.
Yeah. No, you got to do it. You're in good shape,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. No, that'd be fun. That would be
Yeah.
fun.
Well, I want to talk about Fascination, man. 5 stars. I love the album.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It
Uh,
it's a funny thing the way that album materialized.
yeah.
I had my years of trying to woo Miss Pamela, and now those were a few years ago. This was
Mhm.
my daughter was about to move to California, and she came into my room just as we were about to leave for California, about a few days before. And she said, "Now, don't get this wrong, Dad, but I really like this book." And
Mhm.
she was like 19, 20 years old at this time. And of course, it was I'm with the band.
Right.
And I was like, "Oh, that's really funny. I think I'm Facebook friends with her. I met her a few years ago when we
Mhm.
were doing some Graham Parsons things." And sure enough, I was. And I said, "Hey, we're coming out there." And she said, "Well, come on by. I'm just been having what she called a groupie couture sale. She goes to thrift markets and buys cool old things and then cleans them and sells them."
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, we went there and she was very personable and a very sweet lady who, I was aware of her illustrious past, but I wasn't like obsessed with it in any number of ways. I would just, I thought she was kind of cute in those
Right.
days, but when I met her this time, I was like, wow, this is interesting. Because my wife and I had divorced in 2004,
Mhm.
and she is 11 years younger than me. So I kind of always skew myself younger than I am. And to meet a woman who's basically 2 months younger than me,
Mhm.
that I was feeling attracted to was an unusual thing for the lonely guy that I had developed into in my years of bachelorhood, my enforced bachelorhood of later years.
But you look great. You look great.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm happy well, I'm happy I still got my hair. What can I say?
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's definitely, it helps out in this business. Anyway, so yeah, we went out there, we met her, and one thing led to another, and I started to think about it. And on the way home, I started writing the first. The one thing about that album is those songs are in chronological order,
Mhm.
so it traces the arc of my relationship, most of which occurred in my mind after I would go to California for a week or two, have a chance to be with her, maybe a couple, 3 days,
Right.
and then come home for months and get obsessed I kept writing these songs thinking, well, this will win her over. I'll write
That's
the song
funny.
and sing it to her. And that's what I did for a couple of years there.
Wow.
And ultimately it didn't quite work out. But songwriter's revenge is when you get to put it
Sure.
out as an album.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
and then be on her podcast talking about it.
Awesome.
So, yeah, I mean, we became friends. My daughter actually wound up renting her spare room for a couple of years.
Really?
And so, yeah, I would see her every time I'd go to California. And then it got, it was after she told me that she had lost her libido, it was when things started to cool off on my side. I mean, there's something terribly ironic for me to have that moment with the woman who's so linked to her sexual past.
Exactly.
For her to tell me that she has lost that. I mean, she was just letting me down in a kind way or something.
Or she was just worn out, Could be.
There you go. That's probably true. But, yeah, no, it was a monumental irony that I had to deal with there.
Yeah.
It sort of comes through about 2/3 of the way through the album. And then I had to deal with my natural obsession to not let go of these women who I'm thinking I'm in love with.
Right.
I actually, this summer, I've given myself the task to write my memoir.
That's a good idea.
And so I've written the whole thing handwritten. Now I've been typing it into the computer.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a trend that I've noticed in my relationships with women that I tend to not end it very, very cleanly. It just kind of leans over and it hangs on for months, even years, I mean, and I think I've made a career out of writing songs about unrequited relationships with semi-famous women. I mean, of course, Magnet and Steel was famously about Stevie. And
but who hasn't had a crush on Stevie? Come on.
I think I was there early on in the list. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And I'm just a footnote in her book, but she's a whole chapter in mine, But,
sure.
If not
definitely.
More. But yeah, it in some ways, it's all fodder for new songs, and I've never stopped writing. Through the years, people always just think of those first two albums, but I did 4 out of the 6 albums for Columbia. And after they didn't promote the last 2 after Not Shy, we got out of that deal. And then I got a deal with Tom Petty's label, Backstreet Records, distributed by MCA. And the guy who ran that, a guy named Danny Bramson, who had been running Universal Amphitheater for years before that.
Right.
He saw an opportunity to show that he could make a hit record other than a Tom Petty record. And for me, it was an opportunity to show that I was really a rocker and not a crooner like Magnet and Steel led a lot of people to believe. So, it was a very symbiotic relationship, and we were able to nudge my song Full Moon Fire up into the top 40. But then the ugliness of record label politics reared its ugly head again, and the presidency of MCA came up for grabs. Danny wanted it, but so did Irving Azoff. It became a kind of bitter struggle through the months of Full Moon Fire climbing the charts. And then the promo man, I love the promo business. Oh, it's the ugly side of, that's the dark side of the record business that you don't really see all the time, or at least you try not to. A guy named Dino Barbas telling me, oh man, we got all the stations in my pocket and it's never going to lose its bullet. We're going all the way. Well, of course, the next week, one of those stations must have fallen out of his pocket and it lost its bullet. That coincided with Irving taking over at MCA, stripping Backstreet of its independent status, making decisions for the label, and quite frankly saying to me, well, this record is over. And I
Yeah.
had this meeting with him, and I'm like, Irving, Magnet Steel lost its bullet and it got all the way to top 10.
Exactly. Yeah.
Walter, you don't understand, this record is over. And then I did understand that I was Danny's pet project.
Hmm.
And so he couldn't allow me to succeed because of this things that Danny had said about him
That's
in
crazy.
the battle.
Right. Yeah.
And of course, now he is my good friend Lindsay's manager,
Yeah.
which is another kind of irksome thing for me.
Yeah.
And even worse than that, though, is the fact that he just bought this restaurant, which is my favorite restaurant
Oh,
in LA,
gosh.
called Apple Pan
Yeah.
in Westwood. And so
Mm.
I have to eat there with with extra salt on my. So yeah, and so I have those 5 albums, and then of course that ended the Backstreet
Yeah.
relationship. And that was 84, 85. We started recording another record, planning to sell it to the next label that we
Right.
made the deal with. And that never materialized. In the meantime, I got married and my son came along, and
Mhm.
just kind of got distracted with that. I used
Yeah.
to play, I kept playing in LA. I had a couple of different groups that I played with, but I never stopped writing through all that time and trying to record. I had a publishing deal with Brian Ferry's publishing for a while.
Right.
I'd bring the songs in and they'd go, this is a great song, but I can't imagine anybody but you singing it. It's like, well, get me a deal.
Yeah. Sure.
So that went on. And then when I moved to Nashville, I put out an album called Walternative,
Mhm.
which was, the collaborations that I had done since I moved here in 98. Meanwhile, a label here called Renaissance Records wanted to put out those recordings that we stopped back in 85. And so that became the Lost album.
Mhm.
And then in England, it became the Mad Dog album, which was put out by Red Steel, a label which kind of was then, and then they went away for a number of years. And then they materialized again as the quarantine started. I had a dream about the man who's in charge of that label. And I sent him a text saying, hey, I had this funny dream about you, that you had a helicopter outside your apartment. Anyway, he got back to me. He said, well, I've started the label up again. And okay, a little backstory. I had seen him in Liverpool when we did a gig there in 2019,
Right.
and given him a bunch of my CDs. You never know. And of course, it paid off, because he said, what's this Pamela album? And I said, oh, well, that's funny, and I told him the story of it. And he said, this is like a concept album. This is great. Anybody can relate to this. I want to put this out. And so I've had the illusion of a career through this quarantine, where there haven't been really gigs except online things. And sure enough, it came out in England in February, and it's now being, put out over here. And so, you just never know.
You never know.
But yeah, it's a recording. I did these recordings in my home studio. My great drummer, Ronnie Krasinski, who has played with everybody from Sheena Easton to Seals and Crofts to the Everleys. He's just a great guy and a great drummer. And then I did basically all the rest of the stuff on the album. The last 3 songs on Fascination are kind of the post-mortem of it all. It's like it all happened, but I still wasn't over it. And so these are the songs that I was like singing to myself, saying, get over it, have a little self-respect. Why don't you give up on this? And then you can see the title of the last song is called Hell, I Know It's Over. which I wrote with this wonderful woman who's a songwriter named Beth Sass here in town. She and I have recorded and written quite a number of songs. We put out an EP called Webs about 2-3 years ago. Check that. She's really good. But yeah, she played piano on that track. Other than that, I played all the instruments on the album.
Incredible. I want to break down some of the tracks on the album. First of all, Miss Pamela, the official video, it's on YouTube. It should be a top 40 hit if things were normal again.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a pretty catchy tune.
It's a
And
great song, man.
and of course, you know, that's how she's known in the GTOs, Miss Pamela. And so
Exactly.
I grabbed onto that, and of course, I'm with the girl.
I'm with the girl.
You know,
Yeah.
but yeah, you know, when I listened to that album, there were very specific moments because, as I said, I would see her in these little episodes.
Mhm.
I would go out to do shows with the Malibus out on the West Coast,
Right.
visit my daughter, and things would happen or not between me and Pamela. And then I'd come home and write a couple of songs about it. And they accumulated that way. It was kind of funny.
The music is awesome. The Fruit of Fascination is also another favorite of mine.
Thank
Lovers has a great intro. A little bit of psychedelic guitars is what I hear.
You know, I'm the sum of all my parts. You know,
Yeah.
I played a lot of that stuff. I did, you know, San Francisco music in the 60s, late 60s.
Sure.
Very inspirational to me.
But you know what song blew me away?
Yeah.
Treat Me Nice.
Oh,
My God, what a great version of the
Yeah.
the Elvis tune, man.
you know,
you nailed it.
that was one of her favorites and one of my favorites.
Is
and I
that
thought,
right?
well, if this doesn't clinch the deal, I'm not going to put it up.
This
I
has
should
got
have
to
put-
do it.
I should have put on a Mickey Mouse head like at Disneyland because she's also crazy about Mickey Mouse. And
Really?
yeah,
Really?
that was the same night I learned about her loss of libido.
Oh gosh.
I took pictures of her because they had the characters, you know, that
Mhm.
walk around Disneyland, and
Yeah.
she was like crazy for the mouse, and it was like, why can't that be me? You know, envious of Mickey Mouse. You
Well,
know,
maybe
that,
you should wear the ears. That's a good idea.
well, you know, I get the big one.
There you go.
Something that I've been keeping hidden under all this hair.
Yesterday, Forever, and Today sounded a lot like the Birds to me. You know, it was
Sort of big inspiration as well.
yeah,
Um,
fantastic
that
track.
parts led into the Graham Parsons thing. I was,
Exactly.
you know, when the Birds were a psychedelic folk rock band,
Mhm.
I was heavily into them. And then all of a sudden they sideswiped us with this record, Sweetheart of the Rodeo, which was unapologetically country music. And in
Mhm.
1968, country music and hippies didn't really go together very well. It was a
Right.
very, very polarized time. Even, well, not quite as much as it is today, but certainly a prelude to this. And it took a little bit of, you know, wait a minute, I love this band. I better listen to this. And then getting into it and then noticing who's this Graham Parsons guy.
Mhm.
And he was a mysterious character for a number of years. Whenever I'd meet anybody from LA, I would go, who's Graham Parsons? What's he
Right.
doing? Why did he do that to the band? Anyway, then the Flying Burrito Brothers came along and I
Mhm.
got to realize who he was and became a big fan. We were playing that Sageworth band. We were playing in the same circuit as Emmylou Harris
Mhm.
in Georgetown.
Yep.
And I was there the night that Chris Hillman came in and approached Emmy about singing with his friend Graham. And Emmy had no idea who Graham Parsons was. So I was just the right person to show her because I was fairly obsessed with him at that point.
Mhm.
And I played Gilded Palace of Sin and Sweetheart of the Rodeo. And then he came to town like the next day or so. And I made our house available for their woodshedding together to see how their voices worked.
Mhm.
So the first time they sang together was in my kitchen, and I was the only
Wow.
one there listening, and
How cool is that?
it was quite a thrilling moment, you know. And of course, you know, if we had the technology of today in those days, that would have been all documented, and it would have
I
been,
know.
you know. But, right now, it only lives in my brain
Mhm.
and on the pages of this book that I'm writing. But Graham, you know, oozed charisma in those days. He was on a positive note in those days. And then I got to see him toward the end when they were on the road, and he was in some kind of a demonic vortex that it just, you know, he was not seeing the world in the same eyes that he had in those days. But then it was, you know, it was really sweet and really great. I was inspired to write this song "Hearts on Fire" as I started to get more serious about country music. But even so, the first draft of the lyrics of that, it mentioned, like heartburn and doctor give me some antacid kind of thing. It was like I couldn't quite get the tongue out of my cheek. So my buddy who was playing bass for our band, Tom Geiterer, said, no, that's a pretty good song. Let's see if we can make it serious. And so he smoothed out some of the lyrics. Emmy brought it to Graham, and he liked it a lot. In fact, he liked it so much, he sent me a set of lyrics that he wanted me to write music to.
Right.
And I did that just as he passed. So that was, I consider that the last Graham Parsons song. It's called Carolina Calypso. And that's on a Burritos record that I recorded called Sound as Ever. It's also on there's another band that I played with that you didn't mention called Brooklyn Cowboys.
Okay.
Brooklyn Cowboys was a band that I put together with Richard Perry's brother, Fred Perry.
Right.
And a legendary pedal steel player named Buddy Cage. And we put out a couple of CDs around the turn of the century. And we did a good version of Hearts on Fire on there, as well as Carolina Calypso. So yeah, that was, in many ways, he was kind of my last idol in the music business before I kind of stepped up and started doing it and realized these were all just human beings and not some kind of idols on pedestals.
Right.
Their songs might have been that way, but when you got to know them, it was like, oh, really? That's you, And so, it was a great jumping off point for me to have those encounters with them, because I drove them around when they were in Boston. We were living up there when with Emmylou and he were doing those shows. And yeah, he was in a rather depressed state of mind. I don't know what it was, but he had those demons.
Look at all the 90s grunge and just rock guys have committed suicide. I mean, that shocks the hell out of me, man.
Success ruins another man.
Oh my God.
Like, you're doing this, you become huge. Like, I mean, Kurt Cobain is
unbelievable. I talked to his manager. He had no idea that it was coming,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't help but think that there might have been a big element with his wife on some of that.
Yeah. I know.
That's another element that I've been writing about is, are you better off with a woman who's doing the same thing you are, or completely divorced from that and has nothing to do with your business?
Yeah.
It's there's no easy answer to that either. I mean, when it's good and you're both doing the same thing, it's amazing.
Right.
And on the other hand, when they're not a part of your life, then it's almost somewhat empty because they can only appreciate it from the outside, so so I don't know.
Yeah.
But the country song in reverse for me, of course, is that like 4 years ago, my ex-wife moved back in. So we're living together again.
Are you really?
Oh, yeah. Wow. And she's, of course, a little irked at this Pamela album because, and I said, hey, I never thought we were going to be back together.
Yeah, exactly.
You were.
And there's no libido there, so don't worry about it.
The missing libido.
That's funny.
That is.
Two other songs on the album. Pride. You know what that sounds like? The beginning sounds like the Box Tops, the letter.
Oh, wow.
It's got that same beat,
Yeah, that's true. I never thought of that, but I just did a show with Gary Talley of the Box Tops.
Really? How about that?
Jackson. Yeah, there's a station out in Jackson, Tennessee called Cool 103, The Cavalcade of Stars. That's the one with that Lance Hoffman from Orleans was the house band. And it's a crazy show, but Gary is great, and I love the Box Tops. In fact, my drummer on Fascination is now the drummer for the Box Tops.
Really?
So yeah, you picked out something there that that I wasn't aware of, and I think you nailed it.
And Gestures sounds a little bit like Nick Lowe and Elvis Costello in a way, you know. I mean,
They were my peers.
You can identify with every track on this album. It's 5 stars, man. I love it. You know, I'm going to promote the hell out of it.
I appreciate that. That's you know, it's somewhere between retro and I don't know what. You know, I mean, the woman who I wrote that last song with, Beth, she was always bugging me. You got to get Pro Tools. You got to at least get Logic. You got to come on, get modern. Because I recorded those on a Boss 1600 standalone hard disk recorder. That, while it is digital, feels very analog to me, and it's very, you know, relatable as to my experience. So she was always bugging me to get modern, and so I felt a little vindicated as this album came out, and it seemed to be all right, the aesthetics of it. So yeah, you know, I've got a ton of more that I recorded over these years.
Oh, good.
Robert, I mean,
we've
been talking about at least 4 albums worth of stuff that's in the can, as they say.
What about touring?
And that's something I'm looking forward to. But the summer of 2019, before all this went down, I was part of a tour called Rock the Yacht.
Yeah.
And of course,
it's a new thing now.
Well, that's the thing. It's a funny thing how the rebranding of the music of the mid 70s, mid 80s has taken hold. There's a band out of Atlanta called the Yacht Rock Review that got in touch with me, 10 years ago now at least, about doing shows. And they're a cover band, but they have the actual artists come in and perform with them. Robbie Dupree does a lot of those shows. Peter Beckett and Elliot, people who are, I'm sure you've met and talked to already.
Yep.
They're a great band and really do pull off the record, sounding like the records, you know. And so and he told me that the Yacht Rock came from this weird. There's a weird series of videos called Yacht Rock on YouTube by Hollywood Steve, and they talk about the smooth music and they have these really cheesy kind of, you know, supposed to be Christopher Cross, supposed to be, you know, Hall & Oates, supposed to be all these Kenny Loggins, and they sort of make a tongue-in-cheek illustration of how songs came to be. The first one is, you know, they're going to throw Michael McDonald out of the Doobie Brothers because he hasn't written a hit for them in a while. and so that's the big crux of the episode. They last maybe 10 minutes, these little episodes. And they go, and anyway, someone happens to say the phrase, you know, well, what a fool believe. And you see, he goes, and, you know, here's the moment of enlightenment, and he starts to write the song, and everything ends up happily at the end. It's a really funny, as I say, satirical piece, sort of making fun, but gently, you know, making fun of this music. And they took it to seriousness, and they grabbed that. And from there, I'm pretty sure out of that is where this new genre came. And it's like playing at a frat party when you play with they draw, you know, 5,000-6,000 people at Piedmont Park in Atlanta, Yacht Rock Review. And, you know, half of them wearing the captain's hats, floating hats. And it's just a big party. And it is great music, you know, when you put it all together like that. Yeah. And this band pulls it off. And so they've drawn a big following. And then I guess it evolved into this other thing. And then the promoter switched the words to Rock the Yacht instead of Yacht Rock. And that was with a tour with Ambrosia as the house band, doing, of course, all their great songs. Stephen Bishop, Peter Beckett, Elliot Lurie, and John Ford Coley.
I've had all those guys on.
I know you have.
Joe Puerto.
Yeah. It's been a great revival on that level. But of course, to me, that's like a victory lap of some sort. If you do
It
4
is.
songs and then you go back to your nice hotel room and they pay you handsomely. It's great. Yeah. But what I really do is write songs and try to make new music. And so I think Fascination is maybe the 14th album I've put out. A couple of them re-released, that the Lost album was just remastered again and re-released by Red Steel. As they did the Fascination release, they also re-released a song. Well, I tried to have like funny titles for a while. I thought Alternative was kind of funny. And then the next one I put out was called Calypso Now, which had many of the tracks that I recorded for Alternative that didn't make that album.
Are you open to doing these cruises on Yacht Rock? I mean, they got.
Well, I've stayed away from boats as much as possible. And it's funny because this Yacht Rock thing, but
they're going to call you, you know that.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose.
Yeah,
I've got friends who've done it, and they said it's not too bad. It's hurricanes and Legionnaire's disease, and now COVID. I don't know, but I guess it'd be all right.
Getting stuck at sea.
Big boats, My uncle used to have a 26-foot cabin cruiser out of Freeport, Long Island. So we used to spend summers out there with that. And then, it's not like I'm seasick. It's just, I don't know. But yeah, if they offer me something like that, I probably would take it at this point.
Yeah, be fun. See all your old friends.
And I am trying to tour behind this Fascination album.
Good.
It's just that.
Come to Florida.
Well, yeah, I played. Yeah. Was it Clearwater where we did that Rock the Yacht thing last year? I think
Ruth Eckerd Hall.
Yeah, Ruth Eckerd. And the Dali Museum down there.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and sure, I could get into that.
All right, I got to ask you about a rumor that's been going on for years. You probably know what I'm going to ask you. Were you asked to join Fleetwood Mac?
Technically, I never was. No.
Okay.
There was some talk amongst myself and Stevie when Lindsay was leaving the band.
Yeah.
About it, and I don't know. I was kind of reluctant to do it. I mean, on one level, it's great. Another level, I feel like it would kind of wipe out my solo stuff, and I felt like that was important to maintain. So it never seriously came to it.
You would have been perfect in the band. You would have been kind of like Bob Welch,
I think so too. Yeah. I think so too. I had a band with Mick Fleetwood's wife or ex-wife for a while.
Really?
Sarah Fleetwood. And he's a really good singer too.
Are you still friends with Lindsay Buckingham?
I think so. Last time we really communicated was when he had that heart episode.
Yeah.
And one of our running jokes through the years has been our parallel lives. His band Fritz was very much a parallel to Sageworth. Annie McClune's birthday fell within 2 weeks of Stevie's birthday. My middle name is Lindsay, all this weird stuff that, are musical influences of the Beach Boys and the Kingston Trio.
Sure.
So, we very much overlapped in a Venn diagram that has a big wide center. But I got in touch with him and I kind of jokingly said, why are you imitating me now with this heart thing? Because I had an open heart surgery in 2015. I actually was I qualified for Medicare and went to see why my hip was hurting. And they said, oh, you need a new hip. All right.
Yeah.
I went and took the physical. 5 days later, I was at Vanderbilt and they were cutting me open to do a triple bypass. It was all very fast and very.
Walter, I got to tell you, the last 3 guys I interviewed all had open heart surgery. Tommy Rowe, John Hall, and now you. I can't believe this. What is going on here, man?
It just comes with the territory.
I'm scared.
Yeah, well, they do magic things now with
Yeah, they do.
Whatever drugs they use to knock you out. Boy, they sure do knock you out.
Yeah.
I have no conscious memory after kind of being wheeled in and kind of.
Were you in any pain afterwards, after the surgery?
No, not really. No,
Really?
Whatever pain started when the medication started to run out, a month and a half after the surgery. And then it was one of these controlled substances. And it's like,
yeah,
well, you really shouldn't take some Tylenol. It's like, oh,
right,
no.
right.
And so you start to worry about it. But no, I didn't really have any. And in fact, I had no symptoms that I was aware of before fact. I had a 98% blockage, but I was just going along like, hey, this is the way.
How'd you find out?
I took the physical to get my hip done.
Okay.
And then they sent me to Vanderbilt to get my heart done.
Oh my
I got the hip done about 2 months after that, or 3 months, I guess. And so the hip is holding up. And the heart seems to be all right too.
Right.
Now I'm a little more conscious of it. But I walk every day a couple of miles.
Good for you.
Yeah. I try to. I still don't eat crazy, intense health food or anything, but I'm kind of aware of salt, and I don't, I don't know. I do what I think is best, but who knows? I mean, I made it this far. The rest is gravy, it seems like.
Oh, you look great. I mean, were you a smoker or anything?
Oh, I've had my vices through the years, and
yeah, but nothing over the top or anything.
I never was much of a drinker. I think maybe
Right.
that led a lot to it. And I still eat as if I were 17 years old. I don't. I
So do I.
adapted to adult tastes.
Yeah.
To the chagrin of my family. But it's like, hey, this works for me. Don't bug me. Leave me alone.
Right.
But yeah, no, I haven't done anything crazy to try and maintain this. I guess I have to thank my parents. Although my mother died when she was 60, she was about to get a quadruple bypass.
Really?
And she never made it to the operation. She had a massive heart attack under the anesthesia. And then my father, he made it to 89, 90 or something like that. He seemed to, and he had a big distrust of doctors.
Yeah.
So he
that generation, yeah.
But yeah, no, knock wood.
Yeah.
I'm happy for the genes that I've got, I
guess.
guess.
My dad's 96. He drank all his life too.
Right.
So maybe we need to drink more. I don't know.
Well, I'll have the occasional peppermint schnapps when I'm doing a gig.
Oh, that sounds good.
And then by the time I'm off, it's not even on, I'm not even aware of having drunk it anymore.
Yeah.
It just kind of loosens up the stage show a little bit. But yeah, no, I mean, my parents worked in advertising as I grew up in the 60s in New York. So that show Mad Men is very much like whatever. Those are the people. My mother was the copy director and my stepfather was the art director. And,
cool.
Martinis flowed freely.
Oh, yeah.
All the time.
Yeah, they were pretty hip back then.
Yeah, well, as a kid, I wasn't real impressed by the way it made them act.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, gee.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that kind of was part of why I never really got into it. And my friend John Zambetti from the Malibus, he and I were very similar in our demeanor about things like that. And so we had a good kind of support system for one another. And in fact, we both started writing songs around the same time. And so that was a good kind of, well, let me hear your song. And then, and so we had a good reason to keep writing and an audience who would listen. And so, yeah, I mean, I got a guitar when I was 15 and I was in high school. And John said, if you get an electric guitar, you could be in the band. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And so I got a new 1964 Strat.
Oh wow, geez.
It
You
was
still have it?
No, if I
Oh.
did, I'd have a bigger house. But no, it just went from there, and
Mm,
it was fun, and it was this kind of semi-fantasy world. We talked about the
mhm.
fantasy camp. It's like we thought we were much better than we were, but
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
our girlfriends liked it, and then in the school we seemed okay, and and it just kind of went from there. And once I started writing songs, and that was only like a year and a half after I got the guitar, I I I would get bored doing scales,
Hmm.
trying,
Me
you know.
too. Yeah.
And so
Took
yeah,
lessons.
I'd like,
Yeah.
hey, how about this? Yeah, there's
Yeah,
a song.
exactly.
And then I was inspired by the leader of the pack to write my first song,
Mm-hmm.
the Shangri-La song.
Shangri-La's, yeah.
And I thought, this is such a silly song. I can write a song as good as this.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote one of these. It was grimly called The Teenage Morgue.
Oh wow.
It was very firmly tongue in cheek, but it was,
Huh.
the beginning.
Yeah.
And the next 10 were about my high school girlfriend. And then it went on
They're
from there.
always about girls, you know?
Well, it had to be. And that's the thing. And then it occurred to me as I'm writing this book, it's like, I think I'm very much akin to the troubadours,
Yeah.
whenever that is, the medieval or the
Right.
Renaissance, when they would sing the ballads of love to the ladies. And it was, and I think that's part of it. And I realized that probably I'm more interested in falling in love and
Mm-hmm.
the beginnings of love than I am in the long-term
The long-term
part of it,
relationship.
when it goes into
That's the
other
fun
parts.
part. Yeah, the
Well, I
intro.
think that's true. And I think, and so that's I think comes across on Fascination as well. I think, that's really what the big revelation was to me, meeting her and finding I had these feelings coming up inside me, because it'd been a real long time since I really felt those feelings.
Right.
And I started feeling like a teenager again,
Mm-hmm.
in this kind of
Yeah.
goofy way. And it was like, and of course, I think it's part of my eagerness of proclaiming my love, which came like on our second date.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, ease off a little bit, a little mystery.
Yeah.
But no, I was like, here I am, look at me. I thought, how could she not want to be with me? After her life and my life and all of it. And well, it's all in those songs, but
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
it was a great adventure at the time. And I'm really happy that it's become something of an album here that
You got to trace your heritage way back, because I know you mentioned you always wanted to play flamingo guitar. So
yes.
maybe you're related to Don Juan or something, I mean, who knows? You got some Spaniard in you.
As Buddy Holly would say, I'm the modern Don Juan.
The modern Don Juan, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of his great songs. If
Yeah.
you don't know that song, you got to check it out.
Well, you're very lucky, because you have a song that's a mainstay in top 40 history, which is Magnet and Steel. That's hard to do. I mean, every station keeps playing it over and over again. And when you hear it, it's like, I love that song,
I can't believe it, tell
Yeah.
you the truth. I mean, the satisfaction I get out of life is the fact that I decided to play guitar without wanting to take lessons.
Mhm.
I started to write songs because I just wanted to write songs. And so I did this stuff that kind of came intuitively.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously I picked up things from people along the way, but the self-made man kind of thing, I guess.
Right.
And I would never have dreamed that kind of success would happen with that song. I mean, it was just a genuine expression of how I felt at the time, and it's very sincere and honest, and I think it came at a time when the background noise of disco was happening a lot.
Yeah.
And so in many ways it
Right.
stood out because of that, which was to my good fortune. But yeah, no, the fact that it has endured is, quite amazing to me. And, it's not like I haven't tried to put another one out since then.
Mhm.
In every one of those albums that I've put out since then, I think I've included one song that's either in 6/8 or has that kind of, the Magnet vibe. If you like Magnet, check this out.
Exactly. Yeah.
But you can't. It's hard to make lightning strike twice, I guess.
Yeah. That's a powerful tune, man. As a top 40 guy, I admire it a lot. It's a great song.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it.
I had Michael Des Barres on the show several times. I love Michael.
His name on your list when I looked at it.
Does he know about your song?
No, I'm not sure, but I can't imagine with Pamela now being on board with the promotion.
Yeah.
But,
you want me to send it to him?
well, I met him a few times at her place because they're still really good friends.
Yeah.
Of course, because of their son.
Right.
They're still interacting a lot, and she has great respect for him.
Mm-hmm.
Much more than I do, but that's the whole other point. I never was much into, what was it, Detective, and what was his other band, Silver or something or other.
Yeah, I'm losing it now.
Kind of that the Hollywood hair music that
right
after my time, and I admire him for what he's accomplished, and and his acting. He's able to have had a career there as well, and so he's a bit standoffish to me in the times I've encountered him. Yeah, and I don't know whether that's because he knows. I mean, in those days,
could be.
He knew I was a courting his old woman.
Silverhead, that's the name of the band. Silverhead. Yeah.
But yeah, Michael has done well for himself.
Mm-hmm.
But I was hoping to go over to England and promote the record. When this whole thing started a year and a half ago now, I pitched it to Robert. Robert is the head of Red Steel Music that made this whole thing happen. England has never really discovered the full extent of my career.
Right.
And even Magnet and Steel didn't do as well over there as it should have. I think there's, very, very rich ground for exploitation here. I think, I could be Nick Drake in reverse, so to speak.
Right.
I'm alive, and it's like to be rediscovered, and then he thought that was a good idea, and that's what we began over there. And of course, some of the things you read in the promo that they're putting out over here, I think were more meant for the audience in England than over here, because as much as I aspired to be part of the Americana catalog and canon with Brooklyn Cowboys, it never quite got past my pop rock success and the image and the perception of me as that. Of course, as a songwriter, I think I'm all these different things. I love surf music, and I love the fact that we've done the Malibus, and I think as a songwriter, I can participate in all these different genres. When I was living in New York in the early 90s, back in my old homestead, as it were, I played guitar and sang with a band called Randy and the Rainbows. And Randy and the Rainbows were technically, at least in the Joel Whitburn book, the last doo-wop act to crack the top 10 with Denise. And they lived like a mile or so away from where I lived in Queens. So I started playing with them, and that was to me that was a real thrill because as a kid I loved doo-wop music. I loved that whole sound of the city and that, and so that was fun, and I've been able to do surf music. I've been able to do country rock.
Exactly.
I got to play guitar for Wanda Jackson, the original female rockabilly rocker who dated Elvis back in the day.
Yeah.
I've done like 6 or 7 shows with her as her guitar player, and she's a trip. I mean, she's got to be at least 5 or 6 years older than me. Maybe, maybe a little more. First rehearsal I did with her, I'm just kind of feeling my way through her song, making sure I don't make mistakes. And she turns around to me and she goes, "Walter, you got to rock harder. Come on." It's like, oh, well, all right, there. So yeah, that was great. And I went to California in '74, telling my mother, I'm going out there, I'm going to make a record. And she's like, yeah, okay, whatever. Why don't you go to law school and become a lawyer? No, I can do this. And so I went out there just with Hearts on Fire as my calling card. And after being there for a year, I went back to New York, not quite sure. And then I got a call from Jackson Browne to come and play guitar in his touring band for the Late for the Sky album, which sounded like a good idea. I always equated Jackson and Joni Mitchell as kind of really able to write great lyrics and write really good songs as well, you know, kind of poetic in a sense. And I rehearsed with him for about 2.5 months for that tour. It started, he wanted me playing electric rhythm, singing a couple of harmonies. And this was, I had just come out of playing in bands where I was the writer and the guitar player, but I was not the singer.
Right.
And so I was a little worried about that. As it evolved, he wanted me to play acoustic instead of electric, and he wanted to play electric. He wanted me to sing a whole lot more, and I was just going to go, oh, God. And so, you know, when you're insecure about that kind of stuff,
right,
it's hard to pull it off. Confidence is a big element in making anything work. And so we both knew it wasn't working, and that kind of before he left, it was like, well, you know, you better. Okay. But of course, that opened the door for me to get my own deal, which you know went on to some all we talked about here today. It's funny how things go one way or another.
Yeah.
And, you know.
Do you have a good manager? I mean, somebody, I know you got Billy that helps you out, but you need people to help you overseas, you know.
Well, it's more the overseas people that have been helping me
good.
now.
Good.
Out of Red Steel, but technically, you know, I'm still on good terms with my ex-manager, and he and I, you know, talk quite frequently, and so he gives me advice. But technically, I don't have a manager at the moment, and that'll, you know, I'm not sure the egg or the chicken here. It's like,
I know what you mean.
Do I get the manager after the interest, or do I get the manager to drive the interest? So,
how about your ex? She's there now, right?
Yeah. Yep.
You know how many people that have their wives taking care of them now as manager and doing all the PR work and everything. It's amazing.
Well, when I did my first few years in a band called Burrito Deluxe,
right,
which was technically Sneaky Pete's Burritos, by the way.
Right.
They had Garth Hudson from the band as the keyboard player. But just as I joined that band, Garth left because of his wife.
Really?
Either not getting along with the management, or you know, I mean, I don't
supposed
know.
To try, you know.
I'm not sure that's a good idea actually at this point. It's better to let me deal with it on my own, but maybe my daughter is
your daughter would be good too. Yeah, that's right. She sounds like she's into it. She's into all the
she is. She's
business.
very, very smart about a lot of things.
How old's your daughter?
She's 26 now.
Okay.
And her brother is 9 years older. They were like kind of bookends to our marriage, as it were. And he's living in Brooklyn, and he's working as an art restorer. And, you know, and through the years, I tried to teach him guitar, and, you know, he'd kind of be reluctant about it, and I didn't want to push it. And then he went to college, and then he had a guitar, and he came back, and it was like, hey, could you show me how that Lonnie Mac song goes? And it was like going on a camping trip or something. It was like a great bonding thing for me now. And now apparently he's making music too. He's writing music that he hasn't allowed me to hear. So, you know, I mean, and I'm, you know, more power to him. I hope he does. Because the thing about music is it's a lifelong companion.
Right.
I tell that to kids that I'm teaching guitar, and it's like, even if you never play in front of another person, you've got that for yourself, and it's a great place to go. It's a great for me. And I think part of not taking lessons in high school, it was a place of refuge for me. I can get away from all of that.
Sure.
Just do whatever I want with this guitar.
I still think it's a gift that you can play by ear and not read music. And there's all the legends don't read music.
Yeah,
it
inhibits you, I think.
It's amazing.
I played with some amazing players who needed music, and when they had the music, they were amazing. But improvisation or
incredible
thought, it just didn't work. So
I can play some by ear, but I get stuck. I can't do it. I can't get that part.
Yeah, well, that happens, of course. But then, as you kind of do your version of that part,
right,
it's created into something new, and
exactly.
You think you're playing, a Jerry Garcia riff, and nobody gets it except you.
Exactly right.
And they go, "Hey, well, I've never heard anything like that." It's like, oh. Okay.
Then I'm kind of embarrassed. Because I'm playing this wrong, and people are going to notice it. And
right.
I feel like an idiot.
Funny, isn't it? It's like, one of the things of being on stage, if you start thinking too much, you get in trouble.
Right.
Better just kind of trust
the
zen and let go with it.
Exactly.
Because when you go, wait, did I sing the second line verse? Wait. And then
exactly. Walter, here's your final question. And I asked this question to everyone. I get some interesting answers. And we were talking about baseball, so it fits right in. If you had a Field of Dreams wish, like the movie, to perform, collaborate with anyone from the past or present, who would that be?
Well, that's a good question. And I think on one level, I can come up with someone more easily on the present than in the past.
Okay.
Because I tend to try to pay attention to some semi-modern things. But let me think about the past. I don't, I've been very fortunate. I mean, of course, I think it would have been great if Graham Parsons had lived, and respect that he seemed to have for my songwriting before he died, obviously, would have been something that would have been great to explore, collaborating with him. But on a present day level, I mean, I love the work of Lana Del Rey. I love that she does.
She is good.
Fun to work with her. There's this duo named Tegan and Sarah out of Canada that I've been fans of for a number of years. That would be fun to work with. But, I don't know whether it's just a defensive mechanism in myself of learning to appreciate what you got and what you can go with from that.
Right.
Or I've just been so fortunate to be able to live through a lot of these, semi-dreams that I don't have a great bucket list kind of need to think of working with anybody like that. I mean, I loved the Kingston Trio. I love Dave Guard. The people that kind of have left the planet since I was a big fan of theirs. I think some of that might have been great. But to go with someone like John Lennon or that would be amazing. But I wonder if it would be I would be gawkingly awkward. That would be like, to be able to be yourself on a level, eye to eye. And that's why the great stuff with working with Lindsay was, because I felt like we were very much eye to eye, and he understood me and I understood him.
Sure.
We were able to do that. And even for that matter with Stevie too. So, I would love to work with those people. I think that'd be great. And, but, I'm very fortunate and very lucky for what that I've had. There's a demo that I did with Stevie for one of her songs called The Dealer that has this very weird kind of video on YouTube.
Really? I got to check it out.
She asked me to sing the demo for her. That was before her next boy Tom Petty came along to do
Mm.
that stuff with her. But yeah, you know, I can't complain.
It's time for another duo with Stevie.
Well, that, you know, that could happen.
Why not?
There are young people that are great too.
Yeah,
And I mean, in some sense, I guess Lana Del Rey is
Lana.
Stevie
Yeah.
these days. Although she does such a shotgun approach that she put out an album called Honeymoon, I guess 6-7 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
And I still love listening to that record. It just kind of all hangs together.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of explicit warnings on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just really good. And in her subsequent albums, it's been, oh, I like these songs, but I can do without these songs. Like it's
Right.
like she's very prolific, and maybe past the point of relevance because she's so prolific.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know. Who am I to judge what anybody should do? But you know, I can just react to what I know I like. You know.
Do you like any of the poppy artists, like say Pink? Could you see yourself, you know?
I've got a few of Pink songs on my
Mm-hmm.
iPod.
She's got a good voice.
I still have an iPod.
Yeah.
I still use iTunes.
Yeah.
It bugs me that Apple is trying to make me not use iTunes. I hate the fact that they're trying to push everybody into streaming.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have, you know, like 13,000 songs on my iPod.
Wow.
And my iTunes. You know, a lot of them are my own.
Yeah.
But it's perfectly satisfactory to
Sure.
me to do it that way. Why do you want me to have to subscribe to
Exactly.
to somebody else programming what I want to hear?
You're
So
100% right.
my computer of 11 years froze, you know, 4 or 5 months ago.
Did it?
And I went out immediately and just bought another iMac
Mm-hmm.
of the same,
Mm-hmm.
you know, basically the same model. I was very upset when I got home and there was no CD burner and there was no, they've gone completely to solid state, I guess, in the guts of the machine. It didn't have enough room for the download, you know, because I backed up everything.
Yeah.
I had to go out and buy a refurbished one from like, you know, a few years after the one that I had just put to bed. And it had like 2 terabytes of memory, which should hold me for a little while. But yeah, you know, it's and remember when you didn't have to buy a phone every few years.
Yeah.
Wasn't that a great time? It's great when you just had a phone and you didn't. I know I sound like an old fart here, but
hey, it's the truth. You know, I was in the electronics business for years.
Yeah.
And my dad had stores since the, I don't know, late 50s. So I saw the progression of electronics all these years, and it moved too fast over the last 20 years or so.
Yeah.
You know, I've got videos from the kids that are 8mm VHS-C. I mean, what am I going to do with it? How am I going to convert all this stuff? You know,
and it's the capitalist system. I hate to say it.
Exactly.
Like, how are we going to make more money tomorrow? Okay, we'll make it obsolete, and then they'll have to buy the new stuff. And it's like, okay, great, but I like the old stuff. Can we just?
Me too. I liked 8-track. I like Beta.
There you go.
I was wrong on both cases, you know.
So, you know, so I'm happy that you like the record, because that's really a celebration of
love the record.
Obsolete technology.
Exactly.
In the world, you know, at least in my mind it is.
Well, I want to mention you can purchase the new release by Walter Egan, Fascination, at Amazon.com. You can watch the video for Miss Pamela on YouTube, and also watch I'm With the Girl on YouTube. Are there any other songs on video?
There's 3 videos from that album. Yesterday, Forever, and Today is also video. Although I think they didn't really want the world to know about that for a while, but it kind of slipped out.
Okay.
So, but by the time, I'm not sure when this is going to air, but you know, it's probably going to be available by then. Okay,
good. It will probably, you know, it'll probably be both at the same time or right around the same time.
Yeah, you know, and there's that, and of course, there's always the old Magnet and Steel video where I look like a vampire, according to my grandmother. It's like, you know, the oil and the grease paint or whatever they put on their face.
Walter Egan, you can visit www.walteregan.com. That's your website. And you're also on Facebook as well.
Walter Lindsay Egan and Walter Egan. I have a couple of pages there.
Awesome.
And, Hey,
Great.
I really appreciate you keeping the music alive here, Ray. And,
I try, man. I try. You know, I don't get paid for any of this stuff, but it's in my heart. You know? I mean, I've done thousands of interviews, and I love what I'm doing. And like you said, I try to keep my favorite music alive. You know, that's what it's all about.
Doing what you love is certainly a payment of some sort.
That's everything. That's everything. Walter, you're a great musician, great artist, great voice, by the way.
Oh,
okay. You need to be up front as a singer and not behind just playing guitar. That's, you know,
thanks.
and lots of great things are going to happen for you. I know it. And especially with this album. And I hope to see you in Florida again soon. Maybe Ruth Eckerd.
Definitely. We'll be there.
Awesome.
South of Tampa, huh?
Yeah. I'm south of Tampa, Sarasota. We got a lot of great rockers that live around here. Rick Derringer, AC/DC lead singer, lives here. I think some of the guys with Cheap Trick, Joe Perry, and it's a nice area.
All right.
It's a real nice area. If you want to be a snowbird, man, I'll start looking for you right now.
I got some old classmates that have been bugging me to come down and visit them down there too.
Oh, the weather's great.
In Hollywood, I do some gigs in Hollywood, Florida.
Yeah, that's where the Hard Rock is. One of the Hard Rocks.
He has me come down there, and we've been talking about doing something. So maybe we will see each other.
That'll be great.
World. Yeah.
That'll be wonderful. Thanks, Walter. Really appreciate it, man.
Thank you, Ray.
Godspeed.
Take care of yourself.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to Interviewing the Legends. Brought to you by the Publicity Works Agency. Call 941-877-1552 or visit us at publicityworksagency.com. Specializing in author and music artist publicity plans. We shine when we make you shine. Tune in to Interviewing the Legends every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Pacific Time on BBS Radio, Station 1.